All right, awesome. All right, welcome everyone. It's so amazing to have so many new people here, new fresh faces. So glad you're with us. Where we're picking up in the book is on page XXVIII. And we're right in the middle of the doctor's opinion. And man, if you're new, if you're struggling, this is a perfect place to come to the study because we are diving into step 1 information. And where we're at on page XXVIII, I'm saying it a whole bunch because we know Roman numerals are the tricky ones. You know, why would they put all that important information in the part of the book that has letters instead of numbers? It's wild. Well, the reason is when they added his Dr. Silkworth's name to it, they had to move it to the Roman numerals so he wouldn't be considered an author. I didn't plan on going to that tangent, but hopefully that tangent helped you to find XXVIII, also known as Roman numeral 28, if you're really good at those. So we are going to be picking up right in the middle of his second statement. The first was a letter. The second is the statement to explain alcoholism to the reader and to the general public. So kicking off very first paragraph, it says, "We believe, and so suggested a few years ago." Now, what he's referencing there, now this one's for the nerd. So if you're like, girl, I am not interested, that's fine. Just have a little casual disassociate. When it says, "we believe, and so suggested a few years ago," what he is referencing is an article that was published in 1937 in the medical journal called Lancet. And that was a famous, well-known medical journal. So it says, "We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is the manifestation of an allergy." So we were speaking about the physical allergy last week, but now we're going in to talk about it a little bit more. Now, if you're like me, you hear the word allergy and you're like, what is this cop-out? What are we on about? Like, I don't have an allergy. That's stupid. Again, the joke I was making. I don't take a drink and then I break out in a rash. No, but I do break out in spots, like other people's beds, like other cities, like behind the dumpster. Not you guys. You're classy. I'm behind the dumpster. Or like I break out in cuffs, a ward of the state, as they say, But I thought it was a cop-out. But when we talk about the word allergy, all we're simply talking about is an abnormal physical reaction. And I have my 1930s dictionary. I have my 1930s medical dictionary because I'm just fun at parties. Literally, I'll come hang out and we'll read the original manuscript. Woo! But in it just describes the allergy as an abnormal phenomenon that occurs after an artificially induced stimulus. What does that mean? What that means is what happens to me when I take a drink. There is something that happens on a physiological level that does not happen to the majority of the population. And so that's what we're talking about. So what happens to me that does not happen to the vast majority of the population? It is this. It says the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never, and I want to emphasize never, occurs in the average temperate drinker. So the allergic reaction is the phenomenon of craving. And so what does that look like? I'll tell you what that looks like from the inside out. The first thing that happens to me when I take a drink that is abnormal is this. You guys let me know if you relate. It's, you guys know what I'm saying? Woo! I take a drink and I get a solution for life. You see, I take a drink and you know the screaming that's coming from the depth of one's soul? I kind of hope you don't relate to that, but you know that? I take a drink and that quiets down. I take a drink and my shoulders, man, I was wearing them as earrings, couldn't get that jewelry at the convention, they start to fall. I take a drink and I find an answer that is salubrious to what I was looking for in my entire life. I take a drink and I find the great panacea to my human ills. I take a drink and man, it's everything that I needed. Now, first of all, That does not ever happen to normal people. Non-alcoholics don't take a drink and find, oh boy, that's the solution to life. But when we talk specifically about the allergy, what we're talking about is something that happens right after that moment. What we're talking about is, and what it looks like for me, it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head. And I do have props for other parts of the book, but I always got a little light switch here, so that works really well. We just got over the migraines. The big light is not coming on. We're staying in the dim light. But it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. You guys relate to that? You see, I take a drink, and I need more. And it's the most incredible thing. The more that I drink, the more that I need that next drink. You see, I take a drink, and my drink demands a second. And my second insists on 4. And that 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on and so forth. You see, I take a drink, and I get thirstier. And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. And it doesn't always look like that. It looks like I go to the pub. See, I'm working with the UK. We're going to the pub. And I take a drink. And I just say, you know what? I'm just going to have one. Just one. And then I take that drink. And it's like, one more won't hurt. And then I think, I could just 2 more. Just 2 more. And then I'm starting to think, you know what? I'll just have a couple shots and I'll shut it down by midnight. That's often what it looks like. You see, I start and I cannot stop every single time. Because I point this out. Because if you're like me, you're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be hanging out at a pizza party with Paige reading the original manuscript. That's a true story. That happened in Illinois. Bristol, Illinois. We were doing that. It was a great time. But you're like, I don't want that. I don't want to be like you. And what I do is I remember those few times, the exception to the rule. You see, I remember those times where I had 3 drinks like a lady, my pants were dry, and I didn't get in any trouble. And I remember that is the exception to the rule. Now, the allergy never happens in a non-alcoholic person. So if you go to someone who does not have the illness that is alcoholism, and you say, hey, can you remember a time where you had 3 drinks and your pants were dry? And they will tell you every single time. But I'm remembering the exception. And they might tell you, oh, God bless those non-alcoholics. They will tell you a time or 2 where they got a little tipsy. Isn't it funny listening to non-alcoholics tell their wild drinking stories? It's like, oh, amateur hour, who let these guys come, it's like you're not doing it right? But my reality is almost every single time I take a drink, that allergy takes me, and I don't know when I'm going to stop, where I'm going to stop, how I'm going to stop, and what's going to happen. But more often than not, it takes me, and I drink until I black out, pass out. I run out of liquor. I run out of options, or I end up in a forcible stop, like the hospital or the back of a police car, or maybe I just pass out at home by myself. That's the allergy, and it never happens to non-alcoholics. So, it says these allergic types, sounds like us. I mean, I'm not going to diagnose you, but if you're picking up what I'm throwing down, it sounds like I might be a little allergic. Sounds like I might be of that type. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. There will never be a time in my life when I can ever take a drink successfully. And again, if you're wondering, what does successful drinking look like? Well, I don't really know from actual experience. But I will tell you from my greater hypothesis of what my scientific hypothesis as to what successful drinking looks like. It looks like 3 drinks, dry pants, both your shoes, no ruined relationships, the house, the life, the hopes, the dreams, none of it's on fire. You know what I mean? And it just seems to be, actually, if you've spoken with non-alcoholics, or what's worse? You've watched non-alcoholics drink. Oh, you speak to a non-alcoholic and what'll they say? They'll say, ooh, I'm starting to feel it. And then they set their drink aside. Wild! Their red light is my green light. I'm starting to feel it. Let's go, baby. You know what I mean? Woo! And also, I'm going to throw something out. we'll do this as a little experiment. Is there anyone here today who drank in this fashion? Now I'm going to throw this out. And what in drinking in this fashion, what we do first things is we get a glass. Now I know I've lost some of you guys already who's drinking out of glasses, you hoity-toity drunks. And then you take your drink. Maybe it's a hard liquor, maybe it's a whiskey, maybe you're just cracking open a cold one, and you pour it into the glass. And then we set that drink down. And then you know what? Let's get some ice. And we go and we get some ice and we put the ice into the drink and, we stir it around. And you know what? I know this doesn't work with this metaphor. We need an umbrella. Why? I don't know. We go and we get, I am just annoyed. I can see how annoyed some of you guys are. Oh, it's about to get worse. I put in that little umbrella. And I stir that ice and I take a little sip. Just a little sip, and then I put that drink down and I start talking about social things and the weather and the sports, and the ice begins to melt and there's a little rim of water at the very top of anyone drink like that? Anyone relate to that sort of drinking? Who here was mad as heck? You're just, get it in ya. But I want to throw something out there. How often do I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and I approach Alcoholics Anonymous the way that I would never dream of approaching a drink? You see, I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and I want to sip my AA. I want to take my time. I don't want to. No. You see, if I want the effects of Alcoholics Anonymous just like I need it, the effect of alcohol, I've got to go after this thing. I got to chug my 12 steps. Bear with me. You know what I mean? I got to go after these steps like I went after a drink if I want the effect. So, that's a tangent I didn't expect to go on. Join us. We'll go on a journey. So it says, these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. And what it is saying, and this is often where we stop in terms of step one, but there is more to step one than this. But where we need to start with step one is the realization that I can never drink again. Because if I have the allergy, if I got the allergy, I got the allergy. There will never be a time in which I can ever safely drink again. But as we go through this book, what we are going to see is that is only a small part of the step one experience. And when it talks about losing our self-confidence, our reliance upon things human, we can hold our experience up to the mirror that is this book. Is my experience that I tried human powers to stop drinking? Did I try things to stay sober? And did they not work? Did I try getting into a relationship? Did I try getting out of that relationship because it was a dumpster fire? Did I get back in it, back out it, back in, back out? Yeah, some of you guys relationship like how I relationship. A hostage situation is how I do it. Anyone tend the geographic, moving from location to location, going to detoxes, treatment centers, sober living facilities, emergency rooms, psych wards, in and out of jail. Did I try going to the gym? Some of you guys know I've talked about abs. There was a time in my life I had abs. What I have now is squishy, which I am fine with. But when I had abs, didn't once in my life lead to abstinence. I promise you, there was a time in my life I was ripped, but I kept getting ripped. Y'all know what I'm saying? I went to university. I got jobs. I switched jobs. I tried all of these things. And I did not try everything. But everything that I tried failed. And if I'm here today and I have tried things, I've tried going to meetings, I've tried and they're not bad things. Counselors, treatment centers, rehabs, psychologists, psychiatrists, those are not bad things. But if I have tried those things and they have not been a sufficient answer to my alcoholism, then it is a sign that I am beyond human power. I am beyond human aid. And it is a sign that I might have the full breadth of this illness, which is to say that I also have the obsession of the mind. We're going to talk, depending on how I do for time, which I'm looking at the time and I'm not doing well at it, we're going to talk about that. But the obsession of the mind, if the allergy of the body means that I can never ever safely drink again, the obsession of the mind means, but I will drink again. And that is the step one proposition. That idea that I need to stay sober, I have to stay sober, I want to stay sober, but I, in and of myself and in and of the things that I have tried, cannot stay sober. And I'll put a little asterisk because I was able to stay sober for a couple months at a time. I did want to kill myself the whole time. And I point that out because if you're here today and you're like, no, I'm fine. Can't you see that I'm sober? I'm going to take 24 and press it on. I'm happy to be here, happy to be sober, you know? I just want you to know that we got a solution for that. We don't have to feel that way. If your knuckles are white, they don't gotta be. I don't gotta be grabbing a hold for dear life. There is freedom. But I also love when it talks about our problems pile up on us and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Was that my experience? Was my experience the consequences of my allergy? Starting to build and build and build. And when I could look objectively at the consequences of my allergy and contrast those, with the relief that I was getting from drinking it, it seemed like a no-brainer. I should not ever drink again. And yet I would do it again. So it goes on to say, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The word froth is like foam. If you think of like foam on a latte or a cappuccino or like sea foam, it's got no weight to it. And then emotional appeal. We were speaking about how the doctor approaches this appeal to authority. He's like, I'm an expert on the field of alcoholism. And there's also these appeals to logic or reason, but an appeal to the emotion is a pulling at the heartstrings. And so frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. Seldom suffices means it doesn't work. The best way to describe what a frothy emotional appeal is not to give you the definition of froth and definition of appeal, but to show you what it looks like from lived experience. Frothy emotional appeal looks like if you loved me, you'd quit drinking. Can't you see what you're doing to us? Can't you see that you're hurting your children? Don't you care about the effect that you're having on us? How could you be so selfish and inconsiderate and thoughtless? Why can't you stop? If you wanted to, you'd stop. That is frothy emotional appeal, and it doesn't work. Now, if we're hanging out today, probably going to throw it out there, not psychopaths, not a sociopath. You don't got to write a true, I don't even kill mosquitoes. So really, I am nowhere approaching sociopathy. But I mentioned that because I wanted frothy emotional appeal to work. I wanted it to work. I didn't want to do the things that I was doing. I didn't want to hurt the people that I was hurting. I didn't want to break their hearts again. I didn't want to betray their trust again. I did not want to do it. Man, I cared so much. And my caring was not enough. And I point to that, to point out that we are not bad people. But what we are up against is an illness over which, man, I have no power. The strongest love that I have in my life is insufficient to keep me sober, and I want it to work, and it doesn't work. That is what I am up against. And it says the message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. And the message that has depth and weight is, I've drank the way that you drank. I've felt the way that you felt. I've gone through what you've gone through. Man, I know what it is like to say, I'm never, ever going to do it again, only to do it again. To say from my lived experience what it is like to have this illness and I've got a way out. And this is how we get there. There is a solution. You see, that combined experience with the problem, that combined experience with the solution, which in Alcoholics Anonymous is the spiritual awakening, and that lived experience with the program of action, these 12 steps, that combined is a message of depth and weight. And it says, in nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. What we are pointing to is the idea that I need a spiritual awakening, a spiritual solution. And believe me, my life needs to be recreated. The dumpster is on fire. I can spruce up the dumpster, but I need something new. And to do that, I need to be grounded in something deeper than myself. And I can't do that by wishing or thinking or trying or even talking about it in meetings. How I get there is the tangible and practical actions of the 12 steps. It goes on to say, and again, what do I need? I need a recreation in my life. That's what I'm after, that spiritual awakening. It says, if any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental. Now, this is a point where I'm like, oh, Silky, because we're friends like that. Me and Dr. Silkworth, we're homies. He's been dead long before I've been, I was alive. But my homie, Silky, I'm like, he's getting a little defensive. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, don't you tell me what to do. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing lines. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder why we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men and women than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. That altruism is helping other people for fun and for free because it is the right thing to do. That is the altruism. And what he's saying, the first few times I read this, and by first few times, I mean for years, I would read it through this lens. Don't get it twisted. But this lens, Silky's getting a little defensive. He's like, hey, I am a doctor. I am a man of science and intellect and logic. And if you think I'm into wishy-washy little woo-woo stuff, you can kind of feel that radiating off him. You do my job. You stand with me on the fire lines. You watch firsthand the horrors that is alcoholism. You watch it devastate generations of families. You watch it tear apart the lives, not just of alcoholics who had meaning and purpose and value as human beings, but the innocent bystanders, the children. You watch it devastate whole people. You do my job. And you will not wonder why we have accepted. And the reason he is championing this movement is because it works. It works. And that is a takeaway from this. That he was an expert in alcoholism. And again, Bill, exaggerating the numbers, he would never. He absolutely did. Exaggerated the numbers probably, but in his career, he oversaw the treatment. Dr. Silkworth oversaw the treatment of something like 50,000 patients. He is an expert. He was a front line to the sufferings and the horrors. And he goes on to say, we feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the men and women than the rehabilitation of these men and women than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. We have found nothing as successful as this. That's what he's saying. And I can ask myself, is this my experience? Have I found nothing which has worked in my life? And again, altruistic, I got some news, going to point out, I know we spoke about the definition. Rob put it in the chat because he's on it. But when we talk about that, the altruism, you know what we're pointing to? 12-step work. Oh man, I got to sponsor others. I got to. If I want to get well and stay well, I have got to sponsor others. Lame. I don't wanna. That's cool. Do it anyways. Actually, that's kind of like my whole sponsorship. It's like, that's okay. Let's do it anyways, right? But I want you to know that I began to have a different experience with Dr. Silkworth's writing on this paragraph. And what began to click for me in my life was the realization that not once in my life would I have ever imagined that my alcoholism would keep a doctor or a therapist or a counselor up at night. And it's a reminder that if the world was to write my 8-step list, how different might it be? And I remember, I don't talk too much about some of the places my drinking took me, because if you're like me, you're looking for all the ways that I'm not like Paige. I'm different from her. I'm not like her. I don't got to do this thing. So I don't often talk about some of the places that I ended up, because what makes alcoholism is the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. And even on page 44, it says or, it doesn't even say and, but one of the places that my alcoholism took me is I was living on the streets of Calgary. And I was living under an overpass, and I was sleeping under a bridge, because I am, but again, does not make me an alcoholic. It makes me not a great roommate. I'll throw that out there. But that's some of the places that I was living. And I would sit under the bridge, and I would often sit under the bridge in the sunlight because I was freezing, because I'm cold all the time, which again, solid strategy if I am somebody who is perpetually cold, to be homeless in Canada. Solid strategy there. I did not have the facilities for that, big man. But what would happen is I would sit in the sun and try to warm up in the mornings, and I would try to panhandle. And let me tell you, I was a good panhandler, because I radiated pity, like, ooh, that feels sorry for me. Yeah. Oh, but I remember there was one woman, because I would sit where a lot of people were on their foot traffic on the way to work. And I remember there was a woman who came up to me, and she said, she didn't know my name, I didn't know hers, and she said to me, I was so worried about you because I didn't see you for a couple weeks. And she was talking about, like, there's not nice people that are out here on the streets. Just a random woman on her way to work. And I kept her up at night. And I caused her worry. And I had because I don't know where I was, probably somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, I do not know the full effects, the ripple effects of my alcoholism. Now, that's not really a message of hope, so I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to share with you another experience. The other experience that I had is, and the truth of the matter is, I do not know the ripple effects that my recovery can have in the world. And a couple of blocks from where I was living on the streets, we have a meeting. Actually, Rob came and spoke at that meeting just a couple weeks ago. I got to hear Rob share in person. It was the best. He doesn't like doing it, so it was extra great. But right downtown there, I was on the way to that meeting because I had a sponsee that was taking an anniversary, and I wanted to make sure I was there. And on my way to the meeting, there was a gentleman who, when you can kind of tell somebody has fallen over, like straight fallen over, like fallen back. And I could tell that he was probably one of us. And I go up to him, and he wasn't really responsive. I call an ambulance, the fire department, the ambulance comes, they say, you go girl, you're good. And I'm like, cool, I'll trust you. Go to the meeting. We come back out, and I see his suitcase there. And I'm like, did they leave his suitcase? No, they left him. And so I go, and I'm like, buddy, are you okay? And I'm talking with him. He's far more responsive, and long story short, we ended up getting him like an Uber to where he was camped out, where he was staying. And as I was talking with him, I was like, hey, I'm Paige, introducing ourselves. It's nice to meet you. He's like, oh, I know. I remember you from the meetings. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the effect that my recovery can have. Now, in that moment, we were able to talk with him. Well, I wasn't pushing him on anything, but he had this moment of willingness to go to detox. And we secured him a ride if he wanted to go in the morning. He didn't. I don't know what's going on with him in his life. But again, I do not know the impact that my recovery can have on the world. So Now, at the very bottom of page XXVIII, this is important. This is such an important part of the book. It says men and women drink. Now, what we're going to be talking about is the cycle of alcoholism, and we're going to spend time here. And if I don't do well on time, I don't know, we might even come back here next week because it is so important. And we're going to go through it. So it says men and women drink. Now, if you're writing in your book, now I'm not going to say it's what all the cool kids are doing, but especially if you're driving. If you're driving, don't write in your book. Focus on the road. Be safe. But feel free to cross out men and women and write alcoholics, because we are not talking about regular people. We are talking about alcoholics. And it says men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And you see, I don't know about you, but for somebody like me, man, I am a relief-seeking missile. You know what I mean? I am drinking for the effect. I need the effect. And the effect is just as we spoke about. It is the relief. It is the, bless you, it is the ease. It is the comfort. It is that feeling that I'm okay. Man, my skin finally feels like it fits. You guys know what I'm saying? Like I'm finally okay. That is what I am after. I am a relief-seeking missile. And if you ask a non-alcoholic why they enjoy drinking, they will tell you some wild answers. Things like, well, I do like the white wine because it pairs well with a nice fish. What? If I'm drinking, I'm not eating, especially fish. That's more to come up during the spiritual prayer position that happens at 3 a.m. You know, when I'm praying to the porcelain gods, dear God, make it stop. Right? By the way, I'm just going to throw it out. If we're struggling with the conception of a power greater than ourselves, I had no problem praying at 3 a.m. whilst, doing what we do. Even then, I was praying on my knees. It was pretty devout prayers that was going on. So, and then, you know what they'll say? They'll say it's social. I like the social aspect of it. You know, it's like, anyone here get drunk in a closet by themselves? You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyone get drunk in a bathroom by themselves? Right? Social, their answers are wild. It helps me enjoy the sports. I love having a beer and watching the game. Okay, anyone here start drinking and then you got no room for extracurriculars like attending a sport or a concert, Yeah, so what I am drinking for is something that they ain't drinking for. I'm drinking for the effect. I'm drinking for the solution. I'm drinking for the answer. I'm drinking for that piece of me that was missing my whole life. Non-alcoholics don't get that. They might get a missing piece. They might get that, but they don't get, I'm drinking because it is the answer. Now it says the sensation, that feeling that is so elusive. To be elusive is to be just out of grasp, like I can't quite hold on to it. That feeling that I get is just out of grasp, that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. And if you're writing in your book, you can make a note that is the mental obsession. Because what that looks like is I've burnt my life to the ground, or I've caused pain I didn't want to cause, and I've hurt people I didn't want to hurt. And I can tell you that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I do not want to do it again. I can tell you, to admit that alcohol is injurious, I can admit to you that it is hurting me, it is hurting others. I can admit to you I ought not do it. I can tell you I don't want to do it. But I cannot differentiate the true from the false. And what that looks like is when I am as sober as I am today. See, the obsession of the mind happens when I am sober. I get a thought. Now that thought is a lie. And that lie tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for 3 drinks. My problem was drinking with Canadians. But we got some people in the UK. Ain't no alcoholics there. Got sprinkling in Americans. No alcoholics south of the border. You know what I mean? None. No alcoholics there. It'll be different. It looks like a thought that is on me all day. Take a drink. Take a drink. Take a drink. Take a drink, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink until what little willpower I'm able to muster gets eroded away. It looks like a case of the Suddenlies. I'm out there living my life, trying to be a responsible member of society, and all of a sudden I have a drink in my hand and I almost don't know how it happened. It looks like a case of the F-its. F this, F that, F you, F it. I'm getting drunk. I'm going to kill myself anyway, so why don't I get hammered? If you were feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. And I like to joke about this. Sometimes it looks like a little bit of self-awareness. It looks like, I am just being insufferable to everyone in my life. Insufferable. If I take a drink or two, I'll take the edge off. I'll be nicer to everyone. My relapse then becomes a public service. You're welcome. By which I mean, my bad. I will be back around to make amends for the TV. That's my bad. Also, if you do not have a sponsor, my bad is not how we make amends in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a little more involved. My bad on the TV, home slice. But that is the obsession of the mind. Because that is what's false. But what is true is that once I take a drink, I cannot control the amount that I take. But when the obsession of the mind is on me, I cannot see the truth. And all I see is the lie. And it says, to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic. I didn't know what it meant to have alcoholism. I did not know what was wrong with me. I did not know. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, I thought I had a whole lot of andas. I thought I had a whole lot of yeah buts. I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic. And I remember being in a taxi with my ex, who's also an alcoholic, because I know how to pick him. And he was talking to the taxi cab driver because he was a little tipsy, and he was making overly social conversation. And he's like, "So man, what's your poison?" And the cab driver did not know what he was talking about. And I had this little ding moment where I'm like, "Oh, not everyone is absolutely killing themselves with drugs and, or in my case, alcohol." I did do some non-conference approved dry goods as well. But you know what I mean? Like, I did not even realize. So it says, they are restless, irritable, and discontented. Now, if you're writing in your book, you can make a note that that is the spiritual malady. And another way to say it is, restless, irritable, discontented. And that is how we are when we are sober. That is the sober state. And that's, I will point out that is the doctor's, it's a doctor's report on the patient. So the doctor is saying, the patient appears today to be a little restless, irritable, discontent, which is a polite way of saying, I'm crawling out of my skin. I woke up this morning as a misanthrope. I got some misanthropy. I am like, I hate everyone. I hate you. I hate me. My skin doesn't fit. There's a hole in the depth of my soul that nothing can fill. I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed. It feels like the anxiety is so bad. Somebody is stabbing my shoulder blades. Man, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore, And by the way, then people will ask how you do it, and you say, fine, I'm fine. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be sober. Just loving sobriety, right? And I will point out that the spiritual malady is not limited to alcoholics. There are non-alcoholics who are spiritually sick. You will find them, you'll find them on the highway. You'll find them at your HOA meeting or your PTA. We can find some spiritually sick individuals. But that is what we need to treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. If I am suffering from a spiritual malady at root, and we're going to see how that fuels the obsession of the mind, I need a way to experience that sense of ease and comfort sober. If I have this malady just means sickness at the depth of my soul, I need to find a salubrious solution to my illness. I need health. I need wellness. I need to not feel that pain in the depth of my soul. And that's what we treat. So the restless, irritable discontent, that is how I feel sober. And it is important to understand that, because I thought y'all just showed up to meetings and were just happy, joyous, and free, and just loved your life and just loved going to meetings. And to be fair, you have free coffee and I get to talk about me, and that's always a great topic. And sometimes y'all have cookies and stuff. So it sounds good, but like that wasn't my experience. You see, I got sober and the world began to turn gray. I got sober and I just didn't fit. I got sober and it felt like I was a raw, exposed nerve ending. And for some ungodly reason, the wind was blowing. Man, I thought I wasn't like you, because I thought you just put down the drink, ain't no problem, ain't no thing. But I put down the drink and it's like, it's all problems. It's all I can't do it. And so it's important to understand, bless you, it's the worst when I catch that. I'm so sorry. When people sneeze and they're on the screen, I'm like, bless you. I have the attention span of a gnat. It's a problem. But the truth is, it was not my andas. I'm an alcoholic anda. It was not my yeah buts. It is what is at root I need to treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so it says they're restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense. And it is just a sense, but I will sell my soul for a sense of ease and comfort. You know, that moment of, I will get rid of anything and everything in my life for a sense of, you know that saying, instant gratification? If instant gratification was so good, why does it only last an instant? But I will cross every boundary in my life, every line in the sand, to get that instant of, that sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks at once. It works. Alcohol works on the spiritual malady. It works, man. It is that for people like us. It doesn't seem to work for non-alcoholics, but it works for people like us. And it comes at once by taking a few drinks. And what I need in Alcoholics Anonymous is I need to find a way to experience that sense of ease and comfort sober. Oh, shoot, I'm not doing well for time. I just clocked the time. Peppa, I'm supposed to be landing the plane. And I was like, oh, we got 30 more minutes. I'm like, wait a minute. No, we don't. Oh, sorry. Yikes. We'll definitely be doing some review of the cycle next week. Oh, boy. All right, hold on. Let me at least get to the end of the paragraph. Yikes. Alrighty. So, drinks which they see others taking with impunity. Impunity, that's those normal jerks. It does nothing to them. It does nothing for them. And it says, after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do. And the phenomenon of craving, so that we succumb to the desires, we take that first drink. And that phenomenon of craving is the physical allergy. That once I start, I cannot stop. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, and it sounds way more fun to read than it does to be on. Now, spree is any length of time that I am drinking. And it says, pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. So I come to filled with that guilt and shame and remorse. And I say, that is it. I am never going to drink again. But you see, the thing that is wrong with me is that has no effect in my life. And it says this is repeated over and over. And I'm going to point out over and over and over and over. And unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, a psychic change is a spiritual experience a spiritual awakening, and that is our solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. There was very little hope of his recovery. The fact that I am hopeless unless I have a spiritual experience. And so next week we're going to go over this again because I did not do well on time. And what I will do is I will share how this cycle looks visually. And I'll share with you that image and we'll talk through what it looks like to be on this cycle. So apologies for taking us right to the end of time. Over to you, Peppa. Thank you for your patience with me.